I stepped into my daughter's courtyard and caught a snatch of conversation between her and my son-in-law. Through the open window, Todd's words reached me. Why is he still around? We could already be living peacefully without him meddling. A sheet of cold dread clamped around my heart. I understood instantly that he meant me. Instead of slipping away, I pushed the door with calm resolve and went inside. Before we go on, make sure you're subscribed and drop a comment telling us where you're listening from. Once the old man finally kicks it, we'll have everything we want. I froze on the front steps, the gift bag trembling in my hand. Todd's voice drifted from the open kitchen window, carried by an October breeze that sent gold leaves skittering across Emily's driveway. Don't talk like that, Todd. My daughter's voice was softer, uncertain. Come on, Emily. Your dad's 69. How much longer can he realistically hang on? And when he goes, the place in Brookfield, the investment accounts, the life insurance, everything flows to you. The toys in my bag shifted as my grip tightened. I'd brought them for Noah and Chloe, planning a quick visit before heading home. Now I stood motionless, listening to my son-in-law tally my death like a quarterly earnings briefing. I know you love him, but try to be practical. He controls every dollar we spend, even this house. He helped with the down payment, and he acts like he owns us because of it. Once we inherit, we'll finally be free. My key slid into the lock with deliberate quiet. The front door opened without a whisper. I walked the hallway, each step measured on the hardwood. The kitchen came into view. Todd and Emily at the quartz island, heads close together like conspirators. They looked up as I entered. Quite a discussion you're having. Todd's face lost its color. Emily's eyes went wide, her hand flying to her throat. I set the gift bag on the stone with a purposeful thud. The toys rattled inside. Dad, we didn't hear you come in. Emily's voice cracked, thin with shock. I stayed standing, studying the panic on Todd's face. You misunderstood, he stammered, half rising from his stool. What did I misunderstand, Todd? That you want me dead? That you're planning how to spend my money before I'm even cold? It's not what it sounds like. Dad, please, it's not what you think. Emily reached toward me, tears gathering. I looked at my brilliant, trusting daughter, a fourth-grade teacher who tended to believe the best about people. She'd met Todd at a coffee shop near her school, introduced by a coworker named Jenna. What Emily didn't know was that I'd learned just how curated that meeting had been. How Todd had sought her out after finding out she had a connection to my engineering firm's retirement accounts. We were just talking. Emily's voice got smaller. Just talking. I echoed her words slowly, letting them hang. About my death, about my money, about how inconvenient my being alive has become. Todd's voice returned as he stood all the way up. You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Pressure of what, exactly? Of me being alive? Of me still breathing and deciding what happens to my assets? The kitchen fell silent except for the October wind moving through the open window. The golden light of late afternoon slid across the quartz like stage lighting. Emily sat between us, caught by the two men who should have protected her. This isn't over. Keep that in mind. The silence stretched taut, like held breath. Todd's hands shook against the counter, panic wrestling with something darker. The anger of a schemer suddenly exposed. You know what? He said, voice rising, desperation hardening into bravado. Maybe this needed to happen. Maybe it's time to address the elephant in the room. I remained perfectly still, watching him turn from stammering fool into aggressive adversary. The shift fascinated me as an engineer, stress revealing the structure beneath the polished shell. You're suffocating us, Mark, controlling every dollar that comes into this house. We can't make a single financial decision without your sign-off. Todd, stop, Emily tried to cut in. No. He turned to her, then back to me. Your father needs to hear this. We're adults, Emily. We shouldn't have to justify every purchase, every trip, every improvement to our own home to your dad. I pulled out a chair and sat, a deliberate power move. By sitting while he loomed, I drained the height advantage of any real threat. Your house? That's an interesting way to put it. His cheeks flushed red. Yes, our house. The fact you helped with the down payment doesn't give you veto power over our lives. I know about your accidental introduction at that cafe near Emily's school. My voice stayed level, conversational. After you pumped her colleague Jenna for information about my assets, Emily's sharp intake of breath cut the air. What is he talking about? Ask him, sweetheart. Ask your husband about the research he did before that chance encounter. About the questions he fed Jenna concerning my engineering contracts and retirement planning. Todd's fists tightened at his sides. You're paranoid, old man. You think everyone's after your precious money. Everyone? No. You? Absolutely. Absolutely. Stop this, both of you. Emily jumped up from her stool, placing herself between us. Her teacher's instincts snapped in, trying to separate two fighting kids. This is insane. But Todd had blown past reason, his carefully maintained mask completely shattered. You want to know what I think? I think you're a bitter old man who can't stand that his daughter picked someone else to build a life with. You're turning her against me because you can't accept she doesn't need Daddy's permission anymore. Dad, please just leave. Emily's voice broke as she looked at me with pleading eyes. Please. The betrayal in that plea cut deeper than Todd's accusations. My own daughter choosing the man who wanted me dead over the father who had protected and provided for her for 42 years. I stood slowly, movements controlled. Todd stepped back, perhaps reading something dangerous in my face. You're right about one thing, Todd. Emily doesn't need my permission anymore. She's made her choice. I looked at my daughter, memorizing her face. But you made a mistake tonight. What mistake? Todd asked, his bravado cracking. You showed me exactly who you are, and now I know what I'm dealing with. This is my house, Todd shouted, moving toward me again. Get out, and don't come back. I can't handle this. Emily covered her face with both hands, shoulders shaking. I walked past them toward the front door, leaving the gift bag on the counter. At the threshold, I turned. 45 years I've been building what I have, Todd. 45 years of careful planning and hard work. You think you can just stroll in and take it all? You're damn right I do. The blunt honesty was almost refreshing. At least now we both knew where we stood. I stepped into the October night, cool air washing my heated face. Behind me, Emily sobbed, and Todd's voice lowered, no doubt trying to soothe her and spin this confrontation to his advantage. The door closed behind me with a soft click that sounded like a declaration of war. The drive through Wauwatosa's tree-lined streets usually calmed me, but tonight each familiar landmark felt like evidence of a life under siege. 15 minutes from Emily's place to my smaller house in Brookfield. 15 minutes to process the total destruction of my family's peace. My house felt different when I unlocked the front door at 8:30. Quieter, more fragile. The photographs of Grace on the mantel seemed to watch me knowingly as I hung my jacket in the closet and went to my study. The desk lamp cast a pool of focused light in an otherwise dark room. I pulled out my engineering notebook, the same kind I'd used for 40 years of project planning, and opened it to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, October 15th, 2024. Declaration of War. My hands moved with familiar precision, drawing lists and diagrams as if this were simply another technical problem requiring a systematic solution. In many ways, it was. I opened the filing cabinet and took out folders I hadn't touched in months. Property deeds, investment statements, life insurance policies. The accumulated wealth of 4 decades spent designing systems and managing contracts. Each document represented years of careful planning, and now I could see how that planning had painted a target on my back. The clock on the desk crept past midnight as I spread papers across the surface. Numbers that once meant security now looked like motives for murder. Todd had done his homework well. Through Emily, he'd gained enough financial insight to map out exactly what he expected to inherit. At 1 a.m, I pulled Grace's photograph from the drawer where I kept it when the ache of missing her got too sharp. 3 years ago, in this very study, she'd sat in the reading chair and delivered a warning I'd been too stubborn to heed. Mark, I don't like this man. He looks at Emily like she's an opportunity, not a person. I dismissed her concerns, wanting to extend the benefit of the doubt. Grace had always been protective of Emily, maybe overly so. But now, surrounded by evidence of Todd's financial interest in our family, her words felt like prophecy. She'd noticed other things, too. How Todd steered talk toward my work, my investments, my retirement plans, how he asked harmless-sounding questions about property values and insurance. Grace had seen through charm to calculation. "I should have listened to you," I whispered to her picture. By 3 a.m., I'd compiled a comprehensive assessment. Todd had access to my financial information through Emily. He'd positioned himself as the primary beneficiary by marriage. And tonight, he'd spoken his willingness to wish for my death out loud. But Todd had made a few critical errors. First, he'd underestimated how clearly I could see him. Second, he assumed I was isolated and defenseless. Third, he forgot that a man who spent 40 years solving complex engineering problems might apply the same skills to personal threats. I turned a fresh page and began writing names and numbers. Karen Boyd from Social Services. She'd handled enough elder financial abuse cases to recognize patterns instantly. David Price, my attorney, who'd structured my estate to shield against this exact exploitation. Frank Miller, retired accountant and old friend, who understood financial manipulation better than anyone I knew. The network I'd built over decades suddenly looked less like a social circle and more like an arsenal. Dawn edged into the study as I finished my initial plan. The man who walked into Emily's kitchen 8 hours ago had been a trusting father. The man sitting at this desk was something else focused, methodical, and absolutely committed to protecting what he'd built. I picked up the phone and dialed Frank, watching the morning sun draw bright lines across the organized papers. Time to start implementing a strategy that would show Todd exactly what kind of mistake he'd made. 4 days of careful research honed my plan like a blade. Frank agreed to meet at the Harbor Cafe, far from familiar territory where loose talk might drift back to unwelcome ears. October wind swept off Lake Michigan as I parked outside the little restaurant. Through the window, I saw Frank's outline glasses perched low, reading with the intensity that had made him a fixture in Milwaukee's financial district for 4 decades. "Mark." Frank rose as I approached and offered a firm handshake. "Your call definitely piqued my curiosity." "Thanks for your time, Frank." I sat across from him and placed a manila folder between our coffee cups and pastries. "I need your eye on some irregularities." Steam curled as Frank opened the folder, his practiced gaze taking in the documents I'd assembled during sleepless hours. Tax returns Todd had carelessly left at their house. Notes from conversations I'd overheard. Employment details gathered discreetly. "These numbers don't match," he said, finger tracing a column. "There's definitely something improper here." "What exactly are you seeing?" "Systematic underreporting of consulting income. Look at these quarterly filings. They show big discrepancies with what he's likely earning in reality." Frank made notes in neat, precise strokes. "In my 40 years, I've seen this pattern often. Your son-in-law has been sloppy." Waves tapped the nearby shoreline while Frank continued his analysis. "This kind of discrepancy suggests deliberate manipulation, not simple error." Frank closed the folder and leaned back. "What do you plan to do with it? The first strike needs to be exact." I met his gaze. "I need the one person at his company who will have to act on this. Alan Brooks, the department manager hard-nosed about compliance. He can't ignore documentation like this." 2 days later, I sat at a public computer in the downtown library, typing carefully. The anonymous letter took shape, professional, factual, devastating. No emotion, no vendetta. Just a concerned colleague flagging irregularities for management. I addressed it to Alan Brooks, attached photocopied evidence, and used a calm, corporate tone recommending an internal audit. A post office across town ensured no link to my neighborhood. Cash for postage, generic envelope, no fingerprints left behind. By Friday evening, my phone rang. "Grandpa?" Noah's voice carried confusion and worry. "Something weird happened today." Dad came home furious and was talking to a lawyer on the phone. "Oh?" What seemed to be troubling him? He kept pacing around the kitchen, muttering about unfair accusations and some corporate investigation. "Is everything okay?" Mom looked worried too. Perfect. The first strike had landed. These things come up in business sometimes, Noah. Try not to stress about grown-up worries. After hanging up, I allowed myself a brief, quiet satisfaction. Todd's comfortable world was starting to crack, and he had no idea who was applying pressure. 3 days after Noah's report, Todd fired back with a cunning I'd begun to respect and fear. He knew psychological warfare. The phone rang at 7 in the morning, too early for casual talk, too urgent to ignore. "Dad?" Emily's voice trembled with tears. "We need to talk." "What's wrong, sweetheart?" Todd filed a police complaint for harassment yesterday. Each word thudded like a stone tossed into a still pond. "He says you've been following him, threatening him, trying to destroy his career." I tightened my grip on the receiver. "Emily." "Dad, please stop this war." Her voice broke. "The kids are scared. I can't handle this anymore. Whatever is happening, it has to stop." "Did he tell you I overheard him? That he wished I were dead?" Silence stretched out over the line. When she spoke again, her voice was smaller, defeated. He explained. "He says you misunderstood, that since Mom died, you aren't thinking clearly, that grief is making you paranoid and dangerous." Clever. He'd targeted my softest point, my daughter's love and her guilt. He'd convinced her aging father had become unstable, a danger to her family's peace. "Emily, I need you to listen carefully." "No, Dad, I can't listen anymore. Please just leave us alone for a while. Let it cool down." The line went dead. 2 hours later, a police cruiser pulled into my driveway. Officer Hannah Lewis was professional yet thorough, her notebook ready as she settled into my living room. "Mr. Ellis, your son-in-law has filed a harassment complaint. He alleges stalking behavior, threatening communications, and attempts to damage his employment. Officer, I'm simply exercising my rights as a concerned citizen." I kept my tone steady and reasonable. "I have made no threats and engaged in no illegal conduct. Have you contacted his workplace?" I reported suspected financial irregularities to the proper corporate authorities. Anonymous reporting of potential misconduct is protected activity. She made notes, observing the calm order of my home, the family photos showing normal relationships. Nothing matched the picture of an unstable elderly man terrorizing his family. "Your son-in-law has expressed concern about your mental state, sir. He mentioned erratic behavior since your wife's passing." Officer, I'm happy to cooperate fully. You'll find I have no criminal history, strong community ties, and sound mental faculties. I gestured toward my desk. My financial records, medical files, and character references are available if needed. After 40 minutes of questions, Officer Lewis closed her notebook. "I'll be interviewing other family members, but I see no evidence of criminal activity here." "Family disputes can be difficult, Mr. Ellis. Perhaps professional mediation would help." After she left, I sat in my study, dissecting Todd's strategy. He'd weaponized the legal system, leveraged Emily's emotions against me, and cast himself as the noble protector shielding his home from a dangerous in-law. He was shrewder than I'd given him credit for. Time to involve professionals who understood these tactics. 3 days later, I climbed the steps to Karen Boyd's office at Social Services. Her reputation for family advocacy preceded her. 40 years defending vulnerable people from predators wearing familiar faces. Mark Ellis. Karen's handshake was firm, her gray eyes sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. "I remember your wife from community fundraisers. Grace was special. Thank you, Karen. I appreciate you fitting me in." Certificates and commendations filled her walls. Family photos and children's drawings suggested a woman who truly cared about protecting others. "Tell me about your son-in-law." For 30 minutes, I laid out the pattern: the calculated courtship, the financial manipulation, the death talk, the police complaint. Karen took methodical notes, asking precise questions that revealed experience. "Mark, I've seen this before. Financial predators target widowed seniors with assets. Your son-in-law's behavior fits the classic profile." She leaned forward. "We need to document everything and build a comprehensive case." "What kind of case?" "The kind that protects you legally while exposing his true nature." "I've got contacts in investigative work, and I know an excellent family attorney." 2 days later, I sat across from David Price in his downtown office overlooking Lake Michigan. The shelves of law books and case files gave the room an air of serious competence. Your son-in-law's harassment complaint is defensive. It suggests he's worried, David said, reviewing the police report I'd obtained. We will operate strictly within the law, but the law can be relentless toward those who abuse it. What are our options? Document everything. Develop the evidence of his financial misconduct. Prepare for civil action if necessary. David wrote in tight, efficient lines. He opened this battlefield. We'll make sure he understands the terrain. Meanwhile, Noah had become an unexpected ally. During one of our usual talks about school and computers, he mentioned finding interesting public records for his class projects. Grandpa, I can help with computer research if you want. Dad doesn't know I see what's happening, but I do. What kind of records? Marriage licenses, court filings, employment histories? There's a lot out there if you know where to look. 3 days later, Karen called, excitement in her tone. Mark, I found something important about your son-in-law's past. He was married before, and it ended badly over money. What kind of money issues? Court records show embezzlement allegations, civil suits, a pattern of targeting women with assets. There are potential witnesses and documents going back 5 years. That evening, my study felt different as I spread out our growing stack professional allies, legal support, tech help, and now proof of predatory behavior. Todd's critical error was assuming I was an isolated older man with limited resources. Instead, he'd awakened a network of professionals who knew exactly what he was. 5 days of evidence gathering gave my team what we needed for the next phase. David's private investigator delivered photographs that would demolish Todd's carefully polished image, while Noah's technical enthusiasm offered the ideal channel for distribution. Grandpa, I can set up anonymous accounts using the school computers. At 16, my grandson understood digital terrain better than most adults. The local Facebook groups reach thousands. What kind of accounts? Generic names, different locations, across multiple platforms. Dad won't be able to trace them. Noah's eyes gleamed with the satisfaction of putting skills to use. People spread information faster online than they ever did by word of mouth. November 15th marked the launch of our digital campaign. The photographs showed Todd dining at expensive restaurants with women who weren't his wife. Receipts and hotel records formed a picture of systematic infidelity funded with income he'd hidden from tax authorities. Noah worked methodically, posting across Wauwatosa and Brookfield groups during prime evening hours when parents scroll after putting kids to bed. Each post included carefully chosen evidence, Frank's financial inconsistencies, photographic proof of affairs, timelines documenting deception. The posts are taking off fast, Noah reported that evening. People are sharing way more than I expected. Within 48 hours, the community response exceeded my projections. Teachers at Emily's school whispered in corridors. Parents at pickup discussed the revelations. Business contacts questioned Todd's integrity. The social pressure I'd engineered created the isolation I intended. Friday night, my phone rang with a barometer reading from the neighborhood grapevine. Mark, have you heard these awful rumors about Todd? Paula Green's voice mixed real shock with a hint of hungry curiosity. She'd been part of Wauwatosa's social fabric for 30 years, an excellent measure of public sentiment. What exactly are people saying, Paula? The whole community is buzzing about photos and money issues. Someone posted proof he cheated on Emily while hiding income from the government. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Poor Emily must be devastated. How is she holding up? I haven't spoken with her lately. Well, parents are questioning whether he should be around the kids. Some folks say criminal charges could be coming. Paula paused, savoring the moment. Is any of it true, Mark? Truth has a way of surfacing, doesn't it? After I hung up, I sat in my study, processing the intelligence Paula had unknowingly supplied. The community's moral outrage was combining with protective instincts toward Emily and the children. Public opinion had swung decisively against Todd, creating social isolation that would push him toward increasingly desperate moves. Perfect. A cornered predator makes mistakes. The anonymous messages began 5 days after the campaign peaked, arriving through multiple channels with growing menace. Texts from burner numbers, emails from fresh accounts, paper notes tucked under my windshield wipers. Stop, old man, or you'll regret it. I know your routine. Back off. Your house looks quiet at night. Too bad if something happened. I photographed and saved each threat, forwarding them to David for legal analysis. Todd's psychological unraveling was accelerating as expected, but his willingness to make physical threats demanded immediate security. The home security team arrived within 24 hours of my call. Technicians installed motion-activated cameras at every entry, night vision units for low-light footage, and cloud backups for preserving evidence. This system will catch clear facial IDs even in low light, the lead tech explained while testing. Everything uploads to secure servers automatically, so the evidence remains even if the local hardware is damaged. I studied the control panel with the same methodical attention I used to give engine schematics. Multiple camera angles, audio recording, a silent alarm to the monitoring service, remote access on my phone, engineering precision applied to personal protection. November 28th brought the escalation I'd anticipated. At 11:30 p.m., my phone buzzed with alerts. Motion at the back door, multiple cameras active, silent alarm triggered. On the screen, crystal-clear footage showed Todd working the lock with basic tools, his face visible despite a half-hearted attempt at disguise. He moved through my study with jittery urgency, searching files and muttering threats the audio nearly caught. "Looking for evidence, you bastard. Should have thought of that first." From my bedroom, I watched him ransack the desk drawers and filing cabinets. He was hunting for anything tied to the investigation he knew was destroying his life. The cameras captured every angle, his face, his actions, his unmistakable intent to locate and destroy evidence. After 15 frantic minutes, he fled through the same back door. The system documented everything with merciless clarity timestamps, facial identification, audio, multiple angles showing premeditated criminal behavior. 2 hours later, I sat with Officer Lewis again, this time with video that left no room for interpretation. "Mr. Ellis, this footage clearly shows breaking and entering with intent to destroy evidence." She reviewed the clips with professional care. "Combined with the threats you've logged, we have grounds for immediate arrest. I want formal charges filed and a warrant issued. We'll coordinate with the district attorney tonight. Your son-in-law will be in custody by morning." The irony was perfect. In trying to erase the trail, Todd had created the most damning proof of all. His attempt to eliminate evidence had produced indisputable evidence of its own, dovetailing with the civil case David was preparing. David's downtown office felt like a war room 5 days after Todd's arrest. Legal aid was available to him. Documents covered the conference table criminal counts, civil pleadings, asset protection orders, and then came a discovery that lifted our case beyond ordinary family conflict. "Mark, we found something that changes everything." David's expression mixed grim satisfaction with professional outrage. "Your son-in-law has been forging estate documents. The papers told a story of systematic fraud, property transfer forms with falsified signatures, bank authorization sheets showing handwriting that didn't match, insurance beneficiary changes with no proper authorization, life insurance policies altered to list Todd as primary beneficiary. Handwriting analysis confirms these signatures are forgeries," David continued. "Date stamps show attempts to backdate changes. Financial institutions have records that contradict his claims about authorization. Federal fraud charges, elder abuse prosecution, civil liability for attempted theft, professional consequences that will end his finance career permanently. We'll file everything at once. Criminal referrals, civil suit, asset freeze orders." David's strategy created legal pressure from every angle. With his accounts frozen, he won't have the resources for a competent defense. On December 13th, I walked up the steps of the Milwaukee County Courthouse. Neighbors and a few local reporters dotted the gallery. The formal setting emphasized procedure and fairness, the proper venue for the meticulous record we'd assembled. David's presentation was tight and devastating. Video of the break-in, photographs proving infidelity and financial deception, expert testimony about forged documents, community witnesses describing patterns of behavior and character concerns. I testified for 2 hours about discovering Todd's true nature and the escalating threats and misconduct that followed. Mr. Collins attempted to forge documents transferring ownership of my property, I stated under oath. Banking records show unauthorized attempts to access accounts and change beneficiary designations. Todd's defense team struggled against the undeniable video showing criminal acts, expert analysis confirming forgeries, financial records documenting evasion and fraud, and community testimony establishing a predatory pattern. Judge Watkins' preliminary rulings validated everything David's comprehensive strategy had built. Asset freezing orders to protect my estate, bail conditions reflecting public safety concerns, criminal charges moving forward in tandem with our civil claims. The evidence reflects a systematic pattern of financial predation and elder abuse, Judge Watkins said for the record. The defendant's assets will remain frozen pending full inquiry into the alleged fraud and forgery. Walking down the courthouse steps with David, I noticed neighbors in the gallery and local media tracking the case. Justice was visible, structured, and professionally executed. Todd faced criminal prosecution, civil liability, professional ruin, and community ostracism. All consequences of choosing manipulation over accountability. The legal system had validated every piece of my careful work. 5 days after that courtroom victory, Todd had lost everything: job, access to money, social standing, and hope. What remained was pure desperation and a murderous focus on the man he blamed for his collapse. December 20th began before dawn with his final gambit. Using the last of his cash, he'd bought basic tools and spent weeks watching my routine. My weekly grocery run along the I-43 corridor offered the perfect chance for what he intended to be my final trip. The brake sabotage was amateur but effective. He made strategic cuts to the hydraulic lines designed to fail at highway speeds. He'd mapped my route, timing, and the treacherous curves where catastrophic brake failure would look like a tragic accident rather than planned murder. At 10:30 that morning, I felt the soft pedal as I merged onto I-43. Engineering instincts recognized the symptoms: immediately fluid loss, dwindling stopping power, mechanical failure promising disaster at 60 miles per hour. Something's wrong with the brakes. The words came out as analysis turned into crisis. I hit speed dial to 911 while I ran emergency procedures learned in 40 years of safety training: engine braking, controlled use of the emergency brake, exploiting the shoulder and terrain, focusing on steady deceleration over panic. I've got complete brake failure on I-43, I told the dispatcher while guiding the car toward the grassy median. Requesting emergency assistance and automotive forensics. The vehicle coasted to a stop in tall grass, but my pulse pounded with the clear intent behind the failure. This wasn't an accident. Someone did this. 2 hours later, a professional mechanic confirmed my suspicions. The brake lines showed deliberate cuts, clean, hand tool marks placed for maximum catastrophic potential at speed. Tool marks indicated amateur technique, but professional intent. "Mr. Ellis, this is attempted murder," the forensic specialist said while photographing the damage. "Whoever did this wanted you dead." My home security system provided the final piece. Footage from the previous night showed Todd approaching my vehicle with tools, his face clearly visible in infrared. The audio captured his muttered threats as he worked. "I'll finish this old man. He won't ruin me." By 6 p.m., officers arrived at Todd's temporary residence with a warrant for attempted murder. From my study window, I watched handcuffs click around his wrists the moment my son-in-law crossed the line from manipulation to murder. 2 weeks later, Detective Aaron Parker sat across from Emily in an interview room at the Wauwatosa Police Department, ready to dismantle my daughter's last illusions about her husband. "Mrs. Collins, your husband attempted to murder your father." Emily's face drained of color. "That can't be true. Todd wouldn't." "The video evidence is conclusive, and it shows premeditation." Detective Parker opened a laptop, playing security footage of Todd sabotaging my car. "He intended your father to die in what would look like an accident." The footage ran in horrifying detail. Todd's methodical movements under the chassis, his muttered threats, the satisfied tilt of his head when he finished. Each frame crushed another piece of Emily's faith in the man she married. "My father almost died because of my husband?" She doubled over, nausea rising as reality shattered denial. The daughter who had chosen Todd over me finally understood the cost of that loyalty. Her father's life had hung on emergency procedures and long-ago training. 3 days later, she stood on my front steps for the first time since our kitchen confrontation. Tear tracks and sleepless exhaustion marked her face, but resolve steadied her voice. "Dad, please forgive me. I was blind to what he really was." "What matters is that you see clearly now," I told her, opening the door wide. "I'm here. We're family. That's what counts." The conversation that followed lasted for hours. Confession, forgiveness, plans to protect the kids, and preparation for the hardest choice a spouse can make. Testifying against her husband in open court. "He tried to kill you. I almost lost you forever." January 8th brought the ultimate test of loyalty. Emily took the witness stand, sworn to tell the truth about the man she married and the father she'd almost lost to his rage. "My husband attempted to murder my father," she said, voice clear and unwavering. Todd's desperate interruption from the defense table revealed his ongoing delusions about control. "Emily, you can't do this to me. You did this to yourself when you tried to kill him." Judge Watkins's gavel cut off the outburst, but nothing could silence the truth my daughter finally spoke. Family loyalty had been tested, broken, and reforged stronger than before. Leaving the stand, Emily passed her husband without acknowledgement. The woman who had once defended him now stood with her father and her children, united against the man who'd threatened everything they held sacred. 5 weeks later, February 15th brought the final sentencing hearing, closing the chapter on Todd's destructive presence in our lives. Judge Watkins's voice carried the weight of justice as she delivered the verdict. "I sentence you to 5 years imprisonment for attempted murder, with additional time for fraud, harassment, and elder abuse, asset forfeiture, revocation of relevant professional licenses, permanent restraining orders, and financial restitution." The legal system had taken apart every means Todd had to threaten my family again. "Justice has been served," I told the reporters outside the courthouse. "Now we can begin healing and move forward," Emily added, her voice steady with new independence. Noah, standing beside us with teenage pride, captured the generational lesson. "Grandpa, you showed us how to stand up for what's right." That evening, 3 generations gathered around my dinner table for the first time in months. The celebratory meal out had been wonderful, but this quiet family dinner meant more. The restoration of trust, love, and safety. Things Todd's manipulation had almost destroyed. Laughter and conversation filled the room as Noah explained his latest computer project and Chloe described her upcoming school play. Ordinary moments, precious because we had nearly lost them. Sometimes measured revenge is the only route to justice, I reflected, watching my grandchildren's animated faces. The engineering approach had worked. Methodical planning, professional expertise, steady pressure, and unshakable determination protected everything I'd built over 69 years. Emily caught my eye across the table, and understanding passed between us without words. The daughter who chose wrong had found the courage to choose right when it mattered most. The father who'd been betrayed had forgiven without hesitation once family loyalty was restored. Grace's photograph smiled down from the mantel, her prophetic warnings vindicated by events she never lived to see, her wisdom alive in the family she helped me protect. The grandchildren she never met, somehow blessed by the strength she'd given me. Outside, February snow fell softly across Brookfield, covering the neighborhood in clean, white promise. Inside, warmth and love wrapped the table where a grandfather watched his family's future unfold with confidence and joy. The inheritance game had ended, and we had won. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click the box on the left. Thank you for watching.